Good morning, good morning, good morning. Uh, Hope everybody's having a great morning. Starting, normally I play my music. Uh, I'm having some technical difficulty with the CD player. But regardless, it is a great Thursday morning. I know a lot of people are just now starting to move around. Still ice and snow, ice on the streets in some places, but all in all, it's great. Sun is shining, so it is good to be back in studio. I don't think I've been here for a couple of weeks, so it's nice to be back. Greeting all of you. Uh, this is the workplace here on KAB at 88.3 FM. I'm your host, Toney Orr. And in studio, she been holding it down. I got that, I don't know if she made it in last week to do the different shows because of the ice.
Oh no.
You didn't come in?
No.
Okay.
Yes, sir. How's I don't care?
I know I didn't. Yeah.
I did send a tape, though. I don't know if they played it.
Okay. Well, so it's good for both of us to be back in studio in the workplace. My beautiful, vivacious, strong, fierce co-host, the Reverend Dr. Denise Doctor.
Grand Rising Humans.
You have any announcements?
I do have some announcements, and I really wish I would do a better job of organizing them. Uh, I don't know, Tony. You need to give me a minute. You keep talking and give me a minute.
Okay. Well, I just want to remind everybody we are in Pledge Drive this week. One of the pledge drives that one of the premiums we offer is a buy a lot for $150. You can get 20 60-second spots. There's 20 minutes of airtime for your and
Form coalition.
that Sunday night, I was looking out, and I saw several trucks with plows and salt from the cities going through, trying to make sure that people were able to get out. And they were working 12-hour shifts in that cold weather, but they were out there. So if you know anybody that works for the city, especially in the public works department, just say, hey, great job. Even though it's their job, just tell me it was a great job.
Yeah, we are also encouraged to give credit where credit is due. So I want to shout out to Mike Orndorff during the storm. He came and knocked on everybody's door to let them know, let us know, he knocked on my door and was like, anything you need, because he has this big old truck, of course. He's like, I'll be more than willing to help you in any way that I can. Just let me know, hit us up, and we'll be more than happy. He did come get my trash. I don't know what he got for other people, but he did come get my trash. So shout out to Mike Orndorff for being a good neighbor.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, Denise, because you know, on Community Voices, Denise always starts out with that the show is, it's centered on Black people, but it's about the whole human existence being centered, even though it's centered on Black folks, it's about the whole human existence. It's about us being, everybody being human. And, and I think about when you said that about Mike Orndorff, I think about my neighbor. His name is Floyd Ross. He's a teacher at Little Rock Southwest High School. I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out, but I think that Monday, and he has a 4-wheel drive truck, and he called me and said, do you need to go to the store or whatever? So, me and my twins, we piled into his truck, and we slid up the street and slid down the hill, but we were able to go to the store and get stuff. And he called every day, hey, do you need anything? Can you do you need to go to the store? Do you need to go to an appointment? And which was great because I have an aunt who is her health is not at the best, so don't know at any time she might have to go to the hospital or something. And so it was great to know. And I think that's what it's all about. How many of us who had the opportunity or maybe had the means to help out somebody else, did we do it? Did we just say, hey, everybody for themselves? And I think that's what happens so many times. And when you look at this country, and I know this is the workplace. I don't, today we're not going to be talking too much about work, but we're talking about what I'm going to be talking about today is when you look and Jesse, who does the Nevermind show on Thursday, we were talking, and we both talked about that during this time of he called it the ice apocalypse. During this time, he mentioned he said something that just resonated with me was that the fact that I didn't look at any news during this whole time. I didn't watch no news. I didn't pull up the newspaper on my phone or my laptop, but nothing. And I didn't know about the partial government shutdown. I did not know. I knew about the young lady Good.
Renee Good.
Renee Good. I saw the video and I knew about her getting shot, but I didn't know about the other person. I didn't even hear about it. That's how disconnected I was, And so what we're looking at now, and you think being trapped or being not able to move during this ice storm, during this snow, I think when you start looking down the road, because they've already raided the election offices in Georgia. The FBI and Tulsi Gabbard went in and they pulled all these election records, they said they were looking for people who may have voted or voted illegally or whatever, but basically are looking for something where they can justify what the president wants is to nationalize the election. But he only wants to do it in 15 states. He doesn't want to do it across the country. but only in these 15 states. And so you're starting to see this move. And when we're talking about being a human, talking about Mike Orndorff, Floyd Ross, who are getting out. And I know there's a lot of other people who went out and checked on their neighbors. There was a lot of other people who got out to make sure that other people were taken care of, that they had means, that they had food, that everything was okay. But then you look at this, where there is this government that's pulling away from taking care of its citizens and taking care of this others, being in a humanistic, way. And if you start to look later on, if you start to connect the dots as we go into, especially this year was election year, you're going to start to see the fear is that this government is just going to take over, where it may not even be an election. It may be what this country does to other countries who we believe aren't treating their citizens right, or being a dictator. We just saw what happened in Venezuela. So you can see what's happening. And so one of the questions that
before you get to that question, I want to just hold, because you mentioned a couple of things, and I have some comments.
Oh, okay.
And so first of all, Hotep is on the line, and wishing us life, prosperity, and health. And then also he was responding to you about the about the city and the streets. And he said, now if the city only had a plan to fix the potholes. So you was giving them credit for the street, whatever they were doing on the street. But he said, now if the city only had a plan to fix the potholes. But you mentioned that Community Voices, I say all the time that it is, we center Blackness in the context of the human story. So the story is for everybody who is human, and then we center Blackness. And here are just a few reasons why. 2 men were killed by ICE, Alex Pretty and Keith Porter. Alex Pretty is what the world is a person that the world identifies as white. The killing of him, his body, was considered a homicide. It was ruled a homicide. Now, Keith Porter, who the world identifies as Black, was also killed by ICE, but his was not ruled homicide. So this is the reason why we have to center Blackness, because if you're not paying attention to Blackness, then you're not getting the whole story as a human. Here's another one. Not just Don Lemon, but all 4 journalists who were arrested for covering the news about ICE were Black. Their names are Don Lemon, Georgia Fort, Jamel Lundy, and Tahern Cruz. Black folks, we got to center them. Otherwise, you're not going to know, because it's only us who are telling the story. And everybody needs to be telling the same story. And listen to this. Much love to Alex Pretty, who I just mentioned, and Renee Good. But remember, ICE has killed 9 people in 2026. You know the names of the 2 white people, but ICE has also killed a Black man named Keith Porter, a Cambodian named Parati La, and 5 Latinos named Herbert Shantez Dominguez, Victor Manuel Diaz, Luis Beltran Yanes Cruz, Luis Gustavo Nuez Caceres, and Geraldo Lunes Campos. ICE is on pace to kill more than 100 people, and it's not just white people. That's why we have to center Blackness. Otherwise, you would not know.
Yeah, and you are so right, because the one thing that the power structure does, the people in power, the one thing they do a very good job of, if they can keep you distracted on this one thing, or they can keep you distracted in some things, then you miss what they're doing in other places, or you miss what they're doing. It's kind of like back in the day when I was a youngster. We would play the game. We would go into a store. Growing up in Chicago, we would go in the stores, and it would be 5 or 6 of us. 3 of us, 2 to 3 of us, their main job was to distract the clerk. If you distract the clerk, the rest of us would go through. We would get chips, we would get soda. We kids, so we getting candy, we getting all this, packing it, and especially in the wintertime, when you have your big coats on, we packing everything, and then get outside, we split up the spoils. And see, that's what's happening now. So if we can keep you distracted, because like you said, Denise, We know about Miss Good and what was the other?
Alex Pretty.
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 See, we know about them, but what about the others? We knew about Don Lemon, but what about the others? So all this is going on while we're being distracted over this other stuff. And one of the things that is keeping us, one of the things that they're doing behind the scenes, they're trying to take your rights away. They're trying to take your health care away. Even with this, it's crazy. So as I was reading, like I said, I didn't even know there was a partial shutdown until I read the paper yesterday, and the president was signing the bill to end the shutdown. But as I read farther, I said, "Oh, this is the shutdown. This is what they put off back on the last shutdown because of healthcare." But as I read, it said the healthcare subsidies didn't even make it through. The healthcare subsidies, yeah, it didn't even happen. But the only thing they're celebrating is the shutdown. Is now it's not a shutdown. And so I'm like, hold up. Part of the shutdown was to get healthcare for the people who need it. And now it's not there. It's still not there. But we're gonna keep you distracted over here while we continue to take the things that you need. And they keep saying, this is what the American people want. And it's always when you hear these politicians, you hear these people talk, they say, this is what the American people voted this president in to do. This is what they wanted. And and my thing is this what we really wanted?
It depends on who you ask.
It depends on who you ask.
Which is also the point about oh, wait a minute, Hotep said something. They have to come back with a supplement bill because DHS was not funded. They're going to have to come back with a supplemental bill because DHS was not funded. And then he said, this is Black History Month, which 365 days are really Black history. So I don't know why we know why we have the month. But yes, we don't have to just talk about Black History during the month of February. But it's also about, like when I was talking about these, when I was reading those names of the people who are non-white, who are also being subjugated to this regime that we are under, that comes from a different source of news. If all you're doing is watching mainstream media, that's number one why you don't have all the news that you need, because you have to follow the sources that are willing to give you the news from everybody's perspective and not just one. And so we have to ask ourselves, who are we listening to? And why are those the only voices that we are listening to? Are there other voices that we could be listening to? Yes. Well, then where are they? You can find them if you search for them.
Yeah. And so one of the biggest things they're talking about is this funding of Homeland.
Hold on just a minute. Hey, Rick, here go Rick. What's up? Rick said, we distract ourselves, won't tell nothing. So how does anything get done? We will lie to hide the truth about our own bad kids. Okay, so I think he's talking about us as Black folks. We distract ourselves, won't tell nothing. Oh, okay, when you say won't tell anything, sometimes we don't hold people accountable for what they do, especially when they do it to children. And so how does anything get done? We will lie to hide the truth about our own bad kids. That's what Rick said.
Yeah, and so one of the things about this distraction that keeps people distracted, and it's so difficult, and we talk about this all the time. A lot of people will say, well, it's not affecting me. It ain't affecting my household. It ain't affecting my neighborhood. It's not affecting me. So, it's them. It's them that is affecting. I got what I need, but it's them. But that's part of distraction because eventually, somehow, some way, it's going to hit you. Somehow, some way.
But it shouldn't even matter whether it hits your door or not. You should be concerned about it, right? Because because anybody who says that what goes on over there doesn't affect me, that's not true. Yeah. Everything that happens to everybody affects you. You just gotta connect the dots, and that's what we don't do.
Right. Going back to something that it says that if one person is oppressed or abused or treated bad, everybody is. Everybody.
If one person ain't free, ain't none of us free.
Right. And so now there is this big push. All states, even here in Arkansas, they're trying to get in on this money. on this billions and billions of dollars that's being funded for homeland, whether it's homeland security, whether it's ICE or whatever. So the big money maker now, one of the big money maker now is detention centers. They're building these detention centers. They're converting, and I forget in Arkansas, I forget this place in Arkansas. God, I can't think of the name. It was something. Oh God, I can't think of what it.
While you talk, okay, go ahead. I thought you were gonna wait to find it.
And so they're trying to convert it into a detention center. They want to build these detention centers. Now, let me tell you something. If you ever watched the movie Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner and the late James Earl Jones, there's a line in the movie where it says, if you build it, they will come. It's just like prisons. If you build it, we're going to fill it. So these detention centers, they're saying we're building these detention centers to hold these undocumented criminals, the worst of the worst, these criminals. But eventually, it's going to be used, in my opinion. They've already criminalized being homeless. They're criminalized mental illness. So if you build these, you got to make the money. So that means you got to put people in it. Where do you think they're going to get those people from? And who's going to be the main target? It's going to be Black and brown bodies. It's going to be people who are poor. It's going to be people who don't have any means. That's what they're going to do. And right now, these detention centers are run like prisons. And it was that Homeland Security and the Border Patrol and ICE, they were running. Now it's being turned over to private entities. And so you have to look at it. You have to look at the big picture. You just can't look at what's here now. You got to be able to look down the road. And sometimes we don't want to do that because going back to what we both have said, we feel like a lot of people feel like, man, that ain't got nothing to do with me. When you see these protests about ICE, when you see, if they're going to kill people for protesting ICE, what you think they're going to do when you try to let there be another mass George Floyd Black Lives Matter protest somewhere? See what's going to happen.
So let me get these comments in from Rick. So he said, yes, man, he's responding to his first comment about we distract ourselves. We need to be snitching and then things will change. We need to tell you see something, say something. I think somebody said that earlier. And then Rick goes on to say, everyone will suffer. We lose, especially the kids. Where that tax money from the billionaire dollar lottery ticket, somebody needs to tell us, oh, where is it? So everyone will suffer. We lose, especially the kids. Where is that tax money from the billionaire dollar lottery ticket? Somebody needs to tell us. And so when you talked about staying with this theme of everybody will suffer, it's not just other people who are being affected. When you said that story, when you shared the story about you and your friends and how you used to distract people so that you can steal from the store. And so as you were talking, I was thinking in my head, you and your friends are the people that my mama would warn us about. Because my mama would say she wanted us to grow up to be Negroes. She wanted to raise us as Negroes because y'all would be what she considered niggas. Mm-hmm. And so we not going to be. And so when you say it doesn't affect you, what y'all are doing way in Chicago is affecting the way my mama is rearing me. So that means there's a divide now in the Black community because I'm a Negro. So we were over here and y'all as niggas, y'all were over there. And so when you think that you're doing something that doesn't affect somebody, that's just not the case. Everything that you do affects everybody, no matter what.
Yeah. When you say that.
Oh, let me just make sure I clear my mom. Make sure that you know that my mama defined nigger as an ignorant person. So she felt like you could be white, Black, Chinese. She didn't care what your race was. She was talking about the behavior.
Yeah. And so even now, you hear people, even in this time, you hear people as they talk about, in Black histories, and they talk about certain people, these people who were considered the icons of the Black movement or the icons in the Black community, and you still hear white people will say, "Oh, there was a credit to their race," or that that was a good Black person. And so it's almost like there are things that we have come to accept and don't. We look at it in a way of, well, it's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. Excuse me. It is a big deal because how can you celebrate the accomplishments of our culture or Black culture, but you still talk about Black culture in a disparaging way? Why couldn't you just say, hey, this was a great, if you talk about Martin Luther King, you don't have to say he was a credit to his race. This you just say this man was a credit to humanity, or Malcolm X, he was a credit to humanity. It bothers me that the people that were considered detrimental, that they were on the most wanted list, that everybody wanted to kill them, that you had the FBI surveillance. All of these people now you said, oh, they are so great. You want to quote what they say. You want to talk about what they do. But in the end, do you really respect them for what they did? Or are you just going along just to sound good so people would think that your racist attitudes or your disparaging remarks just fall to the wayside?
Let me get this comment in from Rick and then I'll say something. Rick says, I'm telling on Toney so I don't get a whooping. If my mama here, he did it in Chicago, I got to get a switch. I'm telling on you so I don't get no whooping. I said, I'm telling on you.
Hey, remember, snitches in the ditches.
So when you're talking about, so I had to go to the physical therapist, and I was supposed to go 30 times. But I would leave out of the physical therapist's office and I would not do the exercises at home. So finally I said to him, I don't need to come back until I'm ready to care for myself, until I'm ready to do these exercises at home. But I had gone 2 times and I noticed that the majority of the people in the room with me were white. I think I've been 3 times. I don't think that I saw one Black person. Anyway, so the last time that I went, because most of the time I'm very strategic about how I move. The last time I went, I wore my T-shirt that has all of the faces of the Black women that are huge when you talk about icons in the civil rights movement. I had it. You got Marlon, you got Ida B. Wells, you got Sojourner Truth, you got Harriet Tubman, you got Michelle Obama, you got Oprah Winfrey, like all of it. And every white person that mentioned my shirt, because a lot of them mentioned the shirt, when I said, well, name them, the only 2 people that could name was Michelle Obama and Oprah Winfrey. Out of all the people that I had, because it's like 7 or 8 or 10 of them on there. It's the front is the same as the back. And so my therapist, Mark, I really like him. My therapist said, tell me who they are. I said, no, you look them up. I took the shirt off and I put it on the bed that I was supposed to be lying on. And he took a picture of it because I told him the next time I come, I want you to tell me who these people are. Because we have to start making sure that we bring these conversations about the human stories, even when we center Black, we got to bring them to the public arena because they're not going to talk about it on their own. So if we're not the ones showing up with the stories, if we're not the ones showing up with the challenge, if we're not the ones showing up with the embodiment of what it means to be Black and excellence, then they are not going to know, because in the circles that they live in, nobody else challenges that. So we have to be the ones who do it.
Caller, you in there? Caller?
Okay, so here's Rick. Funny how Blacks in the East Coast get treated, then those in the Middle South to the West. It's like 3 different worlds. Trump says we third world. Funny, funny how blacks in the East Coast get treated, then those in the Middle South to the West. It's like three different worlds. Trump says we're third world, and I do think that that's true. But I want to say this though. A lot of people, again, it's because we don't know our history that we think it was only in the South, the dirty South, where all the lynchings and all of that happened. The racism was happening all across the country, everywhere. It was, you could go to the North if you wanted to. It made it look different, but it was still racism. If they don't know, why we keep reminding them? Okay, so Rick says if they don't know, why we keep reminding them. If they don't know, we not reminding them. If they don't know, we teaching them. And the reason we teach them is because of the conversation we have about those people that are going to be politicians. If you vote for somebody in office, you need to vote for somebody that knows your story. That's what I'm doing. You need to know my story if you're going to represent me. But of course, I'm not going to vote for somebody who doesn't know my story. But I'm just saying.
And so here's something. So the president was talking about Black history, and they want to create this garden of statues, with statues of people, black, black icons and different things. And as he was talking about, well, the black story, the story of black people is the American story, and we should, embrace the American story. We should not worry about a month. Basically, why are we doing this Black History Month when it should be about American history? That all sounds good. It all sounds good, and I think a lot of people would embrace if you're going to treat my American story with your American story with the full truth. But we know that does not happen. There are different American stories that you don't want to bring together. Now you celebrate, you constantly talk about the accomplishments of the Italian Americans. They even talk about Lucky Luciano, who was a gangster who was able to put forth to be a mediator to help overthrow Italy during World War II. He was able to get some things done, and he was a gangster, a murderer, and they let him stay in the country. They deported him after the war, but while he was here, they used him. And they talk about these different people. But when it comes to Black, brown, and indigenous people, they don't even want to hear our stories. In fact, who was it? J.D. Vance. It was either J.D. Vance or somebody said that indigenous people, First Nation people, contributed nothing.
How could a white person even fix your mouth to say that?
To the American story. And that's the problem. Yes. You have to embrace my story as I embrace your story. But you can't you can't pick and choose what part of my story you want to hear. You can't say, oh, we want to talk about the accomplishments of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. We want to talk about the accomplishments of Thurgood Marshall. But you know what? We don't want to talk about Medgar Evers. We don't want to talk about the assassination of Dr. King. We don't want to talk about somebody that got hung in Georgia because they dared to look at a white person. No, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want that story, but we want this story. But you bring your story in. You talk about, hey, what we had to do with the American Revolution and what we had to go through with this, and we had to fight a war. You want to talk about that, and you want us to embrace. Even now, they embrace the daughters of the American Revolution, the daughters of the Civil War. You embrace that, but the minute you start talking about, hey, what about in Louisiana? What about the Whitney plantation in Louisiana? What about the heads of the slaves who revolted that you put on a stake and stuck them out there? You don't want to talk about that story, and that's the problem. When you talk about earlier, when we start talking about Mike Orndorff and we start talking about Floyd Ross, the people who got out to help their neighbors, they got out to help to create a story where I went over to my neighbor's, Denise house to see what they want. You know, even if I took out the trash, that's a story. That's a story of how we connect. That's a story that shows the humanity. You know, I ain't taking nothing away from that story. I'm giving the full story. Well, why can't we do that in all things? Yes, it's painful sometimes. Yes, it's hurtful. Yes, it makes you stop and you feel a certain way. But that's when you decide that, you know what? I can help make this story different. What can I do to help not only create a different story, a better story, but also embrace the past story?
So here got a couple of compliments. I mean, couple of comments.
I'll take a compliment.
So Lo says, as long as you have that melanated skin, you are going to catch hell in America. As long as you have that melanated skin, you are going to catch hell in America. And I do want to agree with you on part of that. Like, yes, I think you're going to catch hell in America right now, but we as the people have to remember that we have the power to change things. It doesn't have to be like this in America. We need to raise up and do what we're supposed to do. And then Rick says, so what school these people go to? Did we not have the same books? He says, I believe in history. I believe in history. They believe in progress. We not in their plan. When the Hispanics are gone, we next. We next? Rick, we was a start. And then Rick says, Trump says, y'all still talking about Epstein. They were friends. So we ain't got no chance with him and his staff. They working for him in Arkansas. He said, Trump says y'all still talking about Epstein, and they were friends. And this is what I want to say. I want to say that you were talking about what Trump said about Black history, blah, blah, blah. And so I think it's Ezekiel, when we're talking, a lot of times he'll bring up the propaganda. Like, people, it's just propaganda. It's just some mess that they're talking about. And so we need to stop talking about and listening to and getting excited about what people say and watch what they do. Because listen to this. The removal of panels celebrating Black World War II veterans at the Netherlands American Cemetery became a flashpoint for controversy, drawing sharp criticism both in the United States and abroad. These panels, which featured the stories of African American soldiers who fought during World War II, were removed by the Trump administration as part of a rotating exhibit. So you can't celebrate Black history out of your mouth and then remove the panels of Black soldiers with your actions. And so we got to stop getting excited about what people saying.
Well,
Talking about that.
As a rotating exhibit for what?
It was no. The exhibit rotates throughout the country. So it's in the Netherlands. It's going to come to the United States. So the exhibit rotates. But he took the one as it came to America, the United States. He took out the panels that were going to showcase.
Okay.
It's a rotating exhibit.
Yeah. Okay. And that's the thing. You know, we used to have an old saying, I can't hear what you're saying by watching what you do.
And that's what Rick said. Rick said, actions say it all. Stay woke. Actions say it all. Stay woke.
But here's something.
Hold on. And then Lowe says, Black soldiers fought where white soldiers ran away from the battle. Black soldiers fought where white soldiers ran away from the battle. I thought about Trump, because Trump dodged the draft.
He dodged the draft.
So how dare you talk about anybody and patriotism and all of that? And you see, that's what I'm talking about. Y'all listening to these people. Look, don't get me excited up in here. I'm about to burn up.
That's the distraction. Because like I said, if I can keep you occupied at the front door, by the time the person at the front door leaves, you turn around and look at your house. You're like, what happened to my furniture? What happened to my TV?
Or what happened to your land? They stole your land, but you got the Bible.
Yeah. And so here's something that Mina Kynes, who does a show, the Mina Kynes show on Thursdays, and we were having a conversation a couple of months ago, and she said something that I'm still looking into. I'm still, as they say, chewing on it, contemplating on it. But here's the thing that furthers the distraction. 3% of the population of the world controls 97% of the wealth, the power, whatever. 3% controls 97. Now, how do you keep the 97 from overtaking the 3? I'm not a great man. I tell anybody, They finally just gave me a C in college math.
Get up out of here, sir.
They finally gave my professor looked at me and said, Tony, I'm gonna give you this C for the simple fact that you have showed up these semesters in the front row and you tried. But math just ain't your forte. So yeah. But that's the thing. That's the thing. 97 is bigger than 3. But if you keep the people distracted, as long as you keep them distracted, whether it's with propaganda, whether it's with religion, whether it's with uh,
Shenanigans.
all this stuff. Now the 97 is fighting among themselves, and they never realize, you know what? We all sinking. We, we all sinking.
But they can't see themselves in us. You can't see
You can't
yourself
see-
reflected in a Black person because you don't see, because you feel like that color is the melanin is a barrier for you. Wait a minute. Here's Lo says it's that old Willie Lynch idiom: weaken the mind and keep the body strong. It's that old Willie Lynch idiom: weaken the mind and keep the body strong. Oh my goodness, I'm glad you said that. I don't think I've heard that before. But I was going to say to you about, like, let's think about what's happening with Michelle Obama and the series, the Becoming, her movie, her series, the Netflix series, Becoming, after the book. Melania, right? She was going to have her opening, her whatever this is they're doing with her, and one ticket got sold. And they made them feel some kind of way. So they finally just canceled it. And then they announced that it's not going to run in the United States. It's going to play somewhere else, but it's not going to run in the United States. In the meantime, Black people, not just Black people, but people rallied around Becoming because we wanted that to be number one since it was going to air on the same day as Melania. But Melania basically lost this fight. And so what they've done now is they have they've moved Michelle Obama's Becoming to the kids section on Netflix. So if you're looking for it as an adult, because usually when you watch Netflix, it'll say, well, which account do you want? Do you want your account? You want the children's account? You're not even gonna see it on your account because they got it in the children's account. And so it's always this constant grind to affect Black folk, especially, some kind of way. And so until we are able to see ourselves as human, see everybody as human, and then see the divine reflected in that humanity, we ain't gonna do nothing. The 97 can't move.
You're right. And so this is the last thing, because it's just crazy. But I'm just gonna make this one comment about the Melania thing. So there was a proposal by this man that Melania's documentary was supposed, would be a part of every history class. He wanted this to be a part of every history class in every school.
Who is this man? A white man?
Trump.
Wait a minute. So you got ICE out hunting down immigrants, and your wife is an immigrant, but you want her to be celebrated in the schools while you killing the brown folk, dehumanizing brown folks, desecrating. See, that's what I'm talking about. Y'all got to stop listening to these people. Here's Rick again. How many tickets did Kamala's movie make? Shh, they ain't said her name yet. Rick said, how many tickets did Kamala's movie make? Shh, they ain't said her name yet. So we have got, but see, again, okay, one of the things, so Adam and I were talking after the show the other day, and I told you all, sometimes I ask questions that I already know the answers to. So I'm in relationship with Adam, so I knew the answers that even to some of the questions. But what I wanted to make sure that you saw through Adam, because I was contrasting him with Mike Orndorff just in this particular event, about the way that they showed up, the way that Mike showed up at that event, and then the way that Adam showed up in this studio. And so you can be, we have to make sure that when we're talking about, even when I say we center Blackness, that doesn't mean that everything is for Black people only, but it's about making sure that you understand that there are stories that you need to be paying attention to. So when the question was asked of Adam about, okay, well, what do you know about, like, can you bring the story in if you become the Pulaski treasurer? And he was like, absolutely. Stories like And he rattled it right off, William Laporte, right? And so you could tell he wasn't like, oh, let me think of some, oh, let me try to figure out something. He was like, oh, sure, I know, blah, blah, blah. And so those stories have to be told, they have to be shared, but you also need to go looking for them. And that's part of the problem as well. You don't want to do no work. You want somebody else to tell you the story. You want somebody to put it in a sermon. You want somebody to write it in a book. You want somebody to put it on a podcast. You don't want to do any work to find anything out for yourselves. And then you dare to say, oh no, but we all American. Well, but this is America and we look, I don't know. No, we don't even say none of that. We don't say none of that.
Yeah. And let me say this. When you start, because ICE is nothing now than an arm of the military. Everything, law enforcement, I'm telling you right now, that's why they're coming into these cities and they're trying to get law enforcement on their side. Because now law enforcement, ICE, FBI, marshals, all of it, it's all going to be under one branch, military. Period. Just like if you look at what happened in Nazi Germany, it's going to be that. And one of the reasons,
let's make sure that we understand that the Nazis in Germany, they studied what they were doing. We were doing. Okay. I just want to make sure we didn't get it from them. They got it from us.
Hitler's main administrative assistant learned what was happening here in the States and advised.
And we're so far to say we don't even want to make it as extreme as it is. So as bad as the whole Holocaust is, it's still not as extreme as what was happening here.
Right. And so one thing about being in the military, we embraced back then, when I was there, we embraced the stories of everybody. Whether you were from Podunk, Iowa, or you were from Selma, Alabama, or you're from Chicago, we embraced. We looked at each other and said, you know what? We don't know. We don't know if there's a bullet. A bullet doesn't have a name on it when you are in those situations. But I want to know your story, because you ask most veterans or people who have been in the military and maybe been in a war zone, whatever. The one thing they can tell you about their buddy. They can tell you about their friend. They can tell you about someone who died, someone who got hurt. They can tell you about who their parents were. They can tell you about who their sisters. We would have pictures of family members of our Army buddies. So one of the first things that Pete Hesped started doing is that's why he started taking this out of the military, because we don't want soldiers who are who know the stories of other soldiers. We just want you to go out and do what we tell you to do. And that's difficult. That's hard. That's why ICE agents and all these other people are covering their faces, because what happens if you are out there and you see this person and say, hold up, this is my neighbor Bill. Is my neighbor Bill, who's an FBI or he gonna put a bullet in my head? And so if you take that away, now all I can look at you as law enforcement, as they have always done with Black, Brown, and First Nation people. I don't look at you as human. I look at you as a target. I look at you as a threat. I look at you as someone that I do not care about. And that's one of the things that has happened.
Lowe says, going back to Nazi and the United States, Germany and the United States, just like copying the principle of eugenics. So when we're talking about the enslavement and the harm, the trauma. And then Rick says, they would brainwash us back then, and we were afraid not to rely on each other. Now they got levels. They would brainwash us back then, and we were afraid, I think you mean to rely on each other, and now they got levels. And I'm actually thinking about what Rick was saying. Like, so when you talk about these people that are in the military with you, these are your friends, these are your buddies, these are all of that. You're saying that, and I believe you. I am not going to challenge your story. It is your story. I'm not going to tell you that your story is not true. What I'm saying, though, is I believe that that's situational. So yes, I want to know your story because we down in here together. I need you. I got to depend on you. My life is in your hands. Your life is in my hands. So let's make sure that we establish this relationship. But what happens when the war is over and you go back home and you go to your different neighborhoods? Do you still have my picture up on your mantle? Do you still tell my story when your friends come over to your house? Am I celebrated around the table when you have a war story you want? Do you bring me up then? Or were you just pretending to be my friend? Or even if it was sincere in the moment, how far does that sincerity go? And so when I think about all the way back, when I think about the black body and the soldiers, black black men, I'm sure it's women too, black soldiers they would had to fight in a segregated part. They were segregated as soldiers. And then when they came home, many of them were lynched in their uniforms, in their military uniforms. The same people that's fighting the same thing that you fighting for, then you don't care about them once the war is over. So that would be my concern. Like, yeah, okay, you got me right here, but what happens when we leave?
Yeah, and so I agree with you. I understand what you're saying, and that's why it was so important when we would meet. I never forget one of my close army friends, and he still reaches out to me from time to time. He was from this small town in Idaho. I mean, and when he came, we first met at the reception station uh, in basic. And that first day, that night, we were sitting around and we were talking. All of us, it was about 15 of us in this barracks room. And he started talking. He said, I don't know, I feel uncomfortable. So why? He said, I've never been around a black person. He said, I've never been, and we were like, huh? He said, I live in Idaho. There's no black people. He said, we saw some Native Americans. He said, but I've never said, this is the first time in my life. He said, outside of TV, this is the first time. And we were like, and we started laughing until a friend of mine's named Gerald from Philadelphia, he said, no, we don't need to laugh at him and make fun of him. Here's an opportunity to learn about him.
Oh, that's right over there.
Yeah, and learn about us. And so,
Because you're talking about something that was in your past. I just want to tell you this. Every Sunday that I play at this church, there's a man named Marvin. Every time that Marvin comes to church, at the end of church, he walks over to me and says, you know, I want to make sure that you know how much I appreciate you, because when I was growing up, I wasn't supposed to talk to black folks. And so I want you to know that I don't mind talking about I'm talking about in 2026. He comes up to me every time and he reminds me that he now knows that it's okay to talk to black people, but he wasn't taught that. And so he wants me to see him as a person that's friendly to blacks, because he don't want me to think that he was, but he tells me, I'm talking about right now, he tells me that. Let me get these last few comments in. Rick said, in the military, then they made you respect the responsibility of a bond in unity. They made you respect that. So you're saying Headsmith is like, no, you don't have to respect that.
right.
And then Rick says, remember the propaganda about blacks and weed or on cocaine with superhuman strength? They believe that more than black soldiers help. They believe that more than black soldiers help whites. Okay, you know what that reminds me of? It was Michael Brown, the one that killed Michael Brown. Do you remember the trial with the guy?
Yeah.
And then somebody said, as he was describing what he saw when he looked at Michael Brown, there was a person, an artist in the back, and he was sketching what the man saw, what the officer, the police, the cop said he saw. And when he turned the picture around, it was a monster. It might as well have been a monster.
Yeah.
And so you looked at this is what you saw when you saw this black man. And that's what Rick is saying. You can't even see us as human.
Right.
He was like, I saw this. It was like unreal what he saw.
Right. And I think
Oh, wait. Rick says Arkansas has many afraid of the old ways. Arkansas has many afraid of the old ways. Probably because they're still doing the old ways. I don't see how much is I don't see very much that has changed. It just looks different.
Yeah. And so going back to your friend Marvin,
Marvin.
and
Marvin.
like my friend, they're willing to come and say, hey, you know, I didn't have this, but I'm willing to learn. And so my friend was willing to learn. And even as we talked about the things, we would always have conversations about how things were in the past, about slavery, about things, because we all wanted to understand where you came from, where I came from. Now, how can we meet in the middle and figure out, how to move? Because at some point in time, we have to work and live together. And I think that's the problem that happens in this country is that you have to embrace or you have to acknowledge this in order to get to a point where we can work together to overcome this. And I think so many times, people will shut down.
I think that's because y'all have a common enemy. That you all are on the same side fighting for the same thing. And that's where I feel like the breakdown is with those of us who are not operating outside of the military, especially as Black folks. We no longer realize that we still have the same enemy. We don't realize that anymore. We don't. And so I think that's why I work more so within the military. Oh, and so Lowe says racism is the DNA of America. Racism is the DNA of America.
Hey, so we're out of time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in.
Wait, because it just came in. Tony said they scared to go home. After he talked to y'all, he couldn't say it at his family table. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Like the guy that you're talking about?
No, in fact, on our first leave, once we finished basic, we got 2 weeks leave. I actually went to Idaho with him. Me and my friend Gerald, we went to Idaho to meet his family and everything. And it was the most uncomfortable, the first 2 hours was so uncomfortable because he opened up the door and they were happy to see him. Hey, John, you're home. And they looked at, oh, but even in that uncomfortability, we were able to talk. We talked about where Gerald's from Philadelphia, I'm from Chicago. We talked about it, and then they were open to listening because the one thing that was said when we left after that we were there just a week, then we went to our own home. But at the end of the day, I never forget what his mother said. His mother said that, you know what, we were so afraid about him going to the army, knowing that he had limited experience in life. He hadn't been anywhere. And we were worried that he was going to be taken advantage of or anything. And she said, but I see a difference in him. He is more open now, and more knowledgeable on some things. And we appreciate that.
Yeah,
and so
what Rick's saying is that, but what about them? So yes, your friend was changed by y'all in the military, but when he goes home, what about them? That's what he was saying. Yes, they greeted y'all, but what happened when y'all left?
Yeah.
And so do you know?
Yeah, because like I said, we still stay in contact. And he said that his parents, his brother, and his 2 sisters, they were cool. They could listen, and because they never understood. They didn't understand what was going on in the South. His dad said, I didn't grow up in the South, so I didn't understand what was going on. I knew about it, I could hear about it, but I didn't understand it. And so he started to understand. But then he was like, there are some people in my family that even now, even then, resented the feel like you had a Black person under
And
your
them the
roof.
people that Rick told about.
Yeah, those people. Hey, want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Lo. It was a great conversation. It's good to start off my first day back in the studio with a great conversation like that. Remember, it's Players Drive. Dr. Donnell, what do you have to say before we get out of here?
Oh, if if you want a world that is more just, more equitable, more inclusive, more peaceful, we are going to have to learn how to live and love differently.
Okay, everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Still be careful out there. Still some ice in some spots. Be careful. Take care of yourself. See you Tuesday on Community Voices with the Reverend Dr. Denise Donnell, and next Thursday for the workplace with the pastor Toney Orr and Denise Donnell. All right, take care.